boom, let's talk about Biden's tax plan, how it affects me and my money, you and yours. Whether you make a ton of money or don't make a ton of money doesn't necessarily matter because it still affects you. Let's go.
What's up, guys? This is 𝗏𝗏𝗥𝗡, and you have reached the Roughneck's Ecom channel. If you want to learn how to make money online or offline, then you need to be right here. I'm a 7-figure Amazon seller. I'm also an honorably discharged Air Force veteran. Graduated from Penn State and started a career as a software engineer and leveraged that to build my businesses. If you guys have any questions on how to make money, you're going to find all your answers right here, so stay tuned.
All right, guys, so today we're going to be talking about Biden's tax plan and how it directly affects you, me, and tons of other people, okay? I got my notes here because there's a lot to go over. So first and foremost, guys, it's not going to kill everybody. It's not going to change the world. Like, I don't care if you like Biden or don't, or like Trump or don't. Just certain things just aren't going to go crazy. They're not just going to blow up and we're going to lose all of our money and everybody is going to get something for free. But there are a few things that really matter. So this directly affects me and people in my tax bracket. So if you are an earner making over $400,000, currently you are not paying, well, you're in the higher tax bracket, you're the highest bracket, but you're not paying, 50% of your money as some people are believing. It is roughly 37%. Okay, now that is thanks to Trump. Trump actually set down a lot of tax cuts and things of that nature. Some of them will be expiring in 2021. We won't be talking about that. And some will be expiring in 2025 unless something is done. So let's just put that out the way. Whether you like the guy or don't, he actually did hook a lot of us high earners up, but whatever. So they are trying to make this go from 37% up to 39.6%. Okay, that is a really big jump. That's almost 3%. Now, I'm not necessarily opposed to a 3% jump, especially if that 3% is going to give people like a universal basic income or like universal health care. I don't care. You can raise it 3%. I can live with that. But what I do not want with that is if you're going to raise 3% just to, line your own pockets. That's not cool. So that does hurt a little bit. So going from 37% up to 39.6% for people like me in my tax bracket, it's kind of a big deal. But again, I'm willing to pay the 3% if we're going to use it for something really, really good, like universal basic income or universal health care or something along those lines. Okay, for a lot of you guys, it's not going to matter. Okay, most people aren't going to do 400,000, and if you do, then you should definitely be paying attention. Now, also, we're going to be talking about this. This is a new tax, right? So this is not changing a tax, but actually adding taxes on top of this. And this is what people are freaking out about when they say, oh, Biden's trying to tax us at 60-something%. Not necessarily true, but could potentially be true, especially in places in Jersey and California. Now, okay, this is like a social security tax, okay? Everyone knows that when you have a job or you're self-employed, like myself, you are paying, a Medicare tax, a little bit over 2%, and then you're paying Social Security, which is a little bit over 12%, okay? Now, up until around $140,000, you will be paying both of those. After that, you do not pay any more in Social Security tax, okay? It's done. You're only paying the Medicare tax, all right? Which is a little bit over 2%. What Biden is trying to do is, after $400,000 of money made, they are trying to reimpose that 12-point-something% tax. So essentially, it creates like a donut hole where you're not paying anything from 100 and roughly 40,000 up to 400,000. So it's not necessarily a bad thing up until you hit $400,000 like me and a lot of my friends. And next thing you know, you're paying an additional almost 12.5%. That is a lot of money, guys. That's a lot of money, okay? Especially if you're making, $1.4 million, we'll say. So let's just say you make $1 million more than that 400,000. Well, congratulations, 12.4%, over $120,000 in taxes that you would be paying if you do not find any loopholes. But wait, there's more, and we're about to teleport and find out about it. Let's go. More notes, guys, more notes. We're going to talk about even more stuff. But before we get into that, I know a lot of people are going to say the last section, oh, it's not actually 12.4% for just you. It's evenly split between the employer and yourself. If you have a job or you're self-employed, your business would essentially pay half and you would pay the other half. All right, so, but for people who don't have that, they would be paying 12.4%, whatever. That's out there. All right, so don't freak out and be like, you're uneducated. It's not that I'm uneducated, guys. Dramatic effect. Okay. Now, let's talk about the capital gains tax. Right now, things are pretty decent. What would essentially change, they would raise it to the maximum of 39.6% for anything over $1 million. That's a lot. That's a lot. You know, and the capital gains tax rate is different depending on long term or short term, right? Long term would be anything over a year, and you're taxed at a different rate. We're not going to talk about that because those aren't things that are really solid in there yet. But the short term capital gains tax, which would be things underneath a year, that's going to be directly affected, and that is 39.6%. That's almost 40%, guys. That's a lot. So if you make $1 million with your investments, anything ranging from stocks and dividends, you know, in investment properties, which they're talking about changing that, which I do believe is a 1031, where you can essentially roll the taxes from one investment property to the next. I think they're trying to do away with that as well. So that's another thing that you guys need to be mindful of. But this one right here, especially if you're making $1 million or more, if you have some really solid investments, and you're, you know, rotating those in and out, you know, selling, buying, things of that nature, that's 39.6%. Like, that's going to hit you real hard in the pocket. Now, for me, you know, personally, as far as, you know, the dividends and stuff like that, I'm not necessarily too worried about it because I'm not playing that game. But there's also a few other things, like they're capping the tax benefit of the itemized deductions up to 28%. Now, for people making over $400,000, you know, that means, you know, people that's making over $400,000. Excuse me, I got these notes and I just put them down really fast on Google Notes. But let's go ahead. Let's get through this. You know, so essentially what it means is you're going to be facing limited itemized deductions. So right now, when you guys are filing your taxes, you guys can take deductions for certain things. Now, there's a limit to how much you can take, and right here they're changing that up to 28% for people that are making a lot more money, which, you know, kind of limits us to what we can have, right? So for people making under that, it's fantastic. You know, you essentially will have a much lower taxable income than someone like myself who makes more than that. You know, so we can still continue to get taxed higher even with the itemized deductions. So let's say the deductions bring us down, you know, for our taxable income to, we'll say, $450,000. Whereas if we were making less money, it would bring us underneath that threshold to, you know, 300 and something thousand. It's a little bit different. A little bit different from that. You know, so it's not necessarily going to be fun. But, you know, this is something that, you know, you're going to have to look at, especially if you're someone who takes a lot of deductions and so on. Ooh, look, there's a car. Yeah. So just be mindful of that as well, guys. But, you know, it's not all bad. There's a few things that are going to be really good, and we're going to talk about those in the next segment, okay? Especially for people like myself who are parents. Let's go. All right, guys, so now we're going to talk about the whole child care and dependent care act, right? So people who have kids, you spend a lot of money in daycare, because I'm one of them. Spend a whole lot of money in daycare. But before this new tax revision that Biden is proposing, the maximum deduction that you could take for childcare was roughly $3,000. They're trying to expand it to $8,000. So what that means is if you're someone like myself who spends a minimum of $1,000 a month on childcare, you can lower your tax bill by having a higher deduction limit. Okay, if you only have a $3,000 deduction, that's only taking $3,000 away from the income, from the money that you would be spending on childcare. Now you have $8,000. So that's a huge, huge boon. Also, it expands the child credit. All right. So right now you get up to $2,000 for children that are 17 and below, or a dependent child. You know, even if they're over 17. They're changing that to $3,000 as long as the economic conditions require it. So now instead of getting just $2,000, you can get $3,000, and that's going to be a pretty big deal for people who have multiple children, like, you know, like myself. So if you have, let's say, 4 kids, that's an extra $4,000, you know, that could be going back into your pocket at the end of the tax year. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to be that way for you, but that's what they are looking to do, and I feel that that's a pretty good thing for parents who are in situations that are not necessarily financially stable, and getting that extra bit of money back at the during tax season is a huge boon. I remember when I was getting refunds, man, like, you know, back when I wasn't making near as much money, it was really nice to have that, you know, so I could, you know, catch up on bills, you know, do something fun for the kids and all that stuff. Realistically, I shouldn't have been doing anything fun. I should have been focusing on making money, but that's neither here nor there. So there's that. Also, let's go ahead and talk about the first-time home buyers credit. Now, this is going to be for a lot of people who wanted to buy homes during this time frame, but were not getting that nice chunk of change. Now, when it comes to this new tax proposal, you're looking at $15,000 credit. That is huge, guys. That is a really, really big deal. Having a $15,000 credit could be the difference between someone getting into a home and someone not getting into a home, or maybe getting into the home that you don't necessarily want but will accept because you don't have enough money. With a $15,000 credit, you could potentially, get into a better home. Let's say you didn't have the money for a down payment. All right, on the home that you wanted, you were a few $1,000s shy. But with a $15,000 credit, you could potentially get into the home of your dreams, or a nicer home than you would have if you did not have this particular credit. And in some cases, that money will just be given to you when you purchase the home. It'll be essentially a refund. So it depends on how your real estate agent works it. You could be getting cash back when you purchase a home instead of getting a tax credit. So that's really going to be up to how you structure, the home purchase and things of that nature. But that's something that we'll get into in a later video. So these things are actually not necessarily all bad. They're kind of bad, but not all bad. They're really bad for businesses if you look at it. They're raising the corporate income tax rate from 21 to 28%. That's kind of bad. Okay, that's not kind of bad. It's actually pretty bad. that's 7%. That's a big jump, especially for corporations that are making a heavy chunk of change. Now, I know everyone says, oh, these corporations are scamming and they're not paying their fair share in taxes, but let's really put this in perspective. The top 1% generally pay the majority of taxes in America. Let's just be real here. They're paying upwards of 40% in some cases. That's a lot of money. Okay, we don't want to just tax everybody, but we also don't want income inequality to blow beyond things. And I'm not, a socialist by any stretch, stretch of the imagination. But what I am saying is I would not necessarily mind my taxes being raised roughly 3%, maybe a little bit more if it helped everybody, if it benefited everybody. I'm just going to make that up somewhere. And we all know people that are not financially stable or financially smart with their money, they're just going to give that money right back to the people who are paying the most in taxes anyway. It's going to come by the way of, buying more product, maybe renting, a place up here, coming and paying photographers to shoot more content, which in turn the photographers, like my man back here, he has to pay more in taxes, the more money I give him. So, it just kind of works out. One hand shakes the other. So, guys, this is just a rough, video. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not a CPA, so I'm not going to tell you guys what you should and shouldn't do. I recommend speaking to your accountant like I do. I talk to my accountant all the time because it is necessary at this level. I'm not trying to get screwed in taxes. These are just some of the things that Biden's proposing, whether you like the guy or don't like the guy. Some of it's good. A lot of this stuff ain't necessarily good for people like me or people that make way more money than I do. So, yeah. But at any rate, man, if you guys haven't liked the video by now, please do like it, comment, subscribe, all that good jazz. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about your feelings. How do you feel about this, man? Do you think this is a good thing, a bad thing? Is it something that you don't necessarily care about because it's not, you're not in that tax bracket? Whatever, let me know. Check out the links below in the description. Make sure you comment. Be safe, be smart. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.